So we got to go real quick.
Let's go.
What's the founding story of Refinery 29 in under 2 minutes?
Founding story is that I started Refinery 29.
What's the true founding story?
I'll tell you the true founding story. I started Refinery 29 with my partner in crime, Justin, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We're both living in Brooklyn. Realized that there was sort of an emergence of cool indie makers and artisans who were popping up. And there was sort of a real need to tell a different story in and around style and lifestyle. And we set out to create basically a curated discovery destination for the coolest independent makers in New York and other cities. And so the first version of Refinery 29, they're still falling off.
No, I know.
It's
a meta commentary about the challenges of modern
It was a curated mall. It was a curated mall of the best independent, cool designers and brands. And so that was the first iteration, and we started to tell stories. We started to bring content into the mix because this is 2005. It's before Facebook, it's before Twitter, it's before any of the social platforms that would actually allow you to build an audience. And so content, which we always had a passion for, we had 2 female co-founders in the business as well, became the conduit through which we really were able to build a strong brand. And, final thing, this was sort of, in the heyday of Condé and Hearst publishing their magazines and recycling their print content online, and nobody was really thinking about, hey, how do we activate an audience of people who are consuming content digitally? And that was the origin story.
So it's like a true startup in that you sort of pivoted in a way, and now you're a media company and you're focused on young females.
We're a media company for women, young women especially. We produce content in a range of different categories that speak to the multifaceted lives of modern women in style, which saw origin in beauty, in women's health, but in news, in politics, global issues. And of course, we distribute that content. You can read that on refinery29.com, on our apps, through the platform world, video, and it's all with a point of view and a perspective that's unique. And that perspective is sort of the continuing thread since the very origin of the company.
Mm-hmm. So you guys have broadened your coverage. I mean, it was more fashion-oriented, and now it is a lot broader than that.
Yeah.
How do you balance, having a focus versus becoming yet another sort of place where it's hard to tell what it's about?
It's in the, first of all, it's in the point of view and the voice in which you address people. It's in the softer components of actually building a brand. That's voice, that's creative. Imagery and art, by the way, in this distributed ecosystem is more important than ever because you have your content removed from the mothership of where it previously was tied to, your .com or your app. And so having a really strong visual identity is one thing that is critically important with regards to having a brand that travels through the ethers of the distributed platforms. And so that's really important to us. That creative language is where style is the backbone for us. That's where our sort of continuity comes in of everything that we've developed in terms of building a brand that's cohesive. And then in terms of expanding the conversation, we just always thought that, the thing that was sort of, the thing about women's interest media was that it's not that interesting. It hadn't been that interesting. So, it's not just about having sort of fashion here and beauty here, but about expanding the conversation in really relevant ways so that you can, cover news about important topics that matter. If that's about us interviewing, sitting down with Hillary and Cecile Richards, the founder of Planned Parenthood, when Planned Parenthood threw its weight behind her campaign, or us writing a really incredible photo essay about child marriages in far-flung places. Mm-hmm. So it's really about the full scope of having an educated discussion. Is
the ambition to be the 21st century Condé or Hearst? Like, what were you selling to the VCs who gave you all that money?
It's never been the vision to build sort of a huge portfolio of brands. I actually think that that's a little bit of a challenge for some of the other digital competitors out there, because building like 10 brands at once is almost impossible. Building one brand that means something for a long time is hard enough. So our vision is not for a portfolio of brands, but to build one umbrella brand.
Just Refinery 29.
Just Refinery 29, obviously with really discrete approaches for every one of the topics that we cover on each and every one of the channels that we distribute that content on. But it's just about Refinery 29 and building a brand that means something around the world.
So your analog competitors, if we were to look at them, not even 10 years ago, I would say like 5 or 6 years ago, and the kind of people and the approaches they take and their technology infrastructure, vastly different from the US. I think nowadays it would be a lot closer, like at least in the people at Hearst talk a lot like you. I mean, Troy Young sounds exactly like what you're saying. So what is brand going to be the thing that differentiates who wins? Because I think that what we're seeing, this is the sort of old brands sort of learn new tricks, is we're seeing some of the legacy brands, they've gotten hip to audience development. They've gotten hip to distribution.
Yeah, it was remarkable to me to sit in that town hall meeting earlier and listen in to everyone, because so much has become table stakes. You mentioned it earlier, but having been in that room 4 years ago and hearing about Google AMP and Facebook Instant Articles and traditional publishers saying that, oh, we've been on that since like the moment it launched, that's revolutionary. So between an approach that is sort of all in on platforms, everyone having their branded content studios, and sort of people being fully embracive of the digital ecosystem, we're now living in a world where a lot of things are just table stakes. And so what does that mean for people who are winning in this space? It means a few things. For one, new platform adoption, right? So that to me is still an area where if you're nimble, if you obviously are well-resourced, but if you also have a great culture, you just hand people the keys to the kingdom really quickly. Like that's something that we've always done. And it's really critical to how we think about the world, right? Giving people autonomy and adopting risk, like rewarding risk takers. So that's really key. The other thing, just quickly, is actually building a big sustainable business. Because in a lot of this talk about just platform and reach, people forget that we're all here to build big businesses, and people are not talking about that enough.
Yeah, well, I think that's where the sort of reckoning is. It's like everyone was bragging about their ComScore numbers, and now it's, well, fine, but like, what are you doing to actually make that into money? And
yeah. What do you do with
one is probably harder than the other.
What do you do with indiscriminate sales and running programmatic advertising? Like, what are you left with at the end of the day when sort of?
So what are you betting if you're not betting on sort of programmatic and just like scale for scale's sake?
Branded content and custom solutions for brands, right? Our strength as a media publisher is the relationship and the depth of the relationship that we have with our audience, which is women, and knowing everything about that audience, from the data, from the insights that we glean every day. And we apply that to relationships with brands and solve real problems for them. So you take a brand like Lane Bryant, which is an incredible business that has been the business of plus-size fashion for a long time, which is sort of at the intersection of a real cultural zeitgeist moment right now. And we were able to work with them in really innovative ways in creating a dialogue around body inclusivity on Refinery 29 that became a real cultural moment. Lifted their brand up, lifted Refinery 29 up. And those moments and thinking about how you really become a solutions partner for brands, applying what you know about the audience that you're serving every day is so key. And one issue that I take these days is that a lot of people talk a lot about scale, but they actually don't know that much about their audiences.
Explain that a little bit more.
Well, I think it's the same point that I was just making about Lane Bryant. It's sort of looking at what are people passionate about. Another example is during Fashion Week this past year, we worked together with Disney, and we created this big experience on the Brooklyn waterfront called 29 Rooms. Disney wanted to launch Minnie Mouse, and so we realized that Fashion Week, not a consumer moment, consumers don't really care about it, but it's still a great moment for sort of social expression and people who care about it. And so we launched Disney at this really amazing public installation, and we made it an interactive moment where 7,000 people came through. We're able to create these flip books with the Disney brand, but it was all about a social interaction moment where we grew the handle for Minnie Mouse by something like 60,000 followers over the span of those 2 days, because we knew that people cared about Disney because of their passion for nostalgia.
So it's driving meaningful action,
absolutely,
rather than just was the ad viewable for 2 seconds, 50% of it.
That matters. That's key, right? I mean, the beauty of Facebook Instant Articles is that viewability is at 98%. That's incredible. That still matters. We were not a place that doesn't serve banner ads at all. We absolutely do, because we work with a lot of brands that put effort and passion into creating photography that they want to distribute out. But it's more than that. So where are you going above and beyond that in really driving relevance and really driving an authentic experience that gets amplified out into the world.
So 2 things, video.
Yeah.
I assume like many publishers, you are doubling down on video. Seems like everyone's building out video teams.
You know, the internet is eating TV. And
do you want to be on TV?
it's one really important marker of, you know, of the next evolution into video and into distributing content and into telling great, rich stories. Our belief with video right now is that you need to just go all in. It's about short form. It's everything about, you know, creating great content for Facebook. By the way, that's an amazing channel for branded content as well. But then it's about live. It's about 360. It's about VR. It's about long form. We're investing into comedy, into scripted. And, you know, video it's just such a broad space right now, and it's the moment to really sort of go all in and see what sticks with your audience.
What are you seeing on Snapchat? Are you a believer? Is that real?
Huge believer, huge. I mean, we're on Snapchat Discover. You know, if you look at the age demographics from 14 to 24, and you look at those demographics and their presence on TV, which is somewhere in the 10% range, it's at 45% on Snapchat or 50%. So there's a ton of engagement on the platform, and it's also an incredible place to work with brands in innovative ways, and, you know, think about how you leverage, again, the strength that you have as a media company in telling stories for the campaigns that actually run through your Snapchat Discover channel. So Snapchat
But can you be profitable with that, with the teams? Because I see people building up 6, 7-person teams for Snapchat Discover.
Absolutely, you can.
And I wonder when, you know, if that's a good investment.
Look, I mean, you know, our belief is that Snapchat, there's a few of these, Facebook, Snapchat, are all sort of, in some respects, going to become the future Comcasts of this world, right? And you want to be in there early. We're having tremendous success in making that a platform that is driving a lot of revenue, and where we're integrating brands very natively into the experience, into the campaigns that we're creating between each story. And so,
What's a platform you
decided?
What's a platform you decided? No, this isn't for us. Because I think one of the problems with platforms is there's so many of them, and unless you're BuzzFeed or you have limitless resources, you can't do everything at once. Is there anything that you would just say, no, that's just not for us?
We were never that huge on Vine, but the best example probably is Periscope and Meerkat, right? Because Facebook Live just swooped in, and the conversation just became about Facebook Live. Right. So we actually were doing experiments in the kitchen, you know, in our office at 7 a.m. with Periscope. But then because Facebook Live just took over the conversation, it became a little less relevant.
Okay. Want to open it up to questions real quick? You can ask the first question, the Digiday Publishing Summit. Ben has a microphone. Paul has a microphone. Debbie has a microphone. No excuses. Here you go. We got you and them over here.
Hello, Guy Griggs from the Washington Post. I had a question about your e-commerce strategy and whether you're integrating your brands and creating really cool solutions.
Yeah, so we actually, the first business that we ever launched before we properly launched was actually in e-commerce. It was a marketplace, totally for another day, over a bottle of wine, why marketplaces are really impossible to scale within media. But for us, the focus now is really on shopping solutions, which means just integrating products into the branded content and making them discoverable, but with a link out to the retailer or the brand, making sure that, of course, inventory is available and that you're sending people somewhere where the item is actually there and purchasable. But we actually pulled out from sort of the intense focus of building a checkout experience on Refinery 29. I think that the product experiences of building for content commerce in a mixed environment are so wholly opposed that somebody else still needs to solve that. Our strength is in creating engagement and building great service for our users, and so putting products in front of them is what matters, and making sure that they're actually in stock and available.
You don't want to do fulfillment?
No way.
No. Okay. Thrillist is going to be here. We'll ask them about that because they split aside the businesses.
Got one over there.
There's one over here, and then, one over here.
Sorry.
He was first. And then one over here.
Who's first?
Oh, wait.
So how do you tell a story back to the brand? How do you report back? How do you?
How do you prove effectiveness?
Are you using clicks and conversions, or are you doing
You
dwell
know,
time? Hover?
really, I mean, two main components. One is ROI on purchasing, right? For us, we're in a category style where it's about a high degree of retail and fashion and beauty advertisers. So did we sell soap? That's one. The other one is, we work on a lot of effectiveness studies and brand lift, awareness. Those are the two things that matters to our advertisers, to our brand partners. And I really like to call them partners. It's about lift and awareness and transactions and ROI.
Okay, and then we've got to wrap it up, unfortunately.
Quick question. Pinterest, it's a little long in the tooth now, but I would think there'd be a great overlap between Refinery and Pinterest readers. What do you think about it?
I still really believe in them. I still think that their moment of integrating buying into the platform is yet to come. And jury's out, but there's still a ton of demand that we see from Pinterest. We see a ton of people taking our content, pinning it on Pinterest. But again, the big moment of transactions happening natively on Pinterest needs to come still.
Cool. All right. We're going to be behind.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Jenna from Husay.
Hi.
I'm curious to hear about your thoughts on the current relationship of editorial and branding, church and state, and at what point it's okay to keel in and give the advertiser what they want, and at what point you have to really protect your editorial vision.
Well, you need to have values that mean something, and you can never go into the opposing direction of what those values stand for. So if we, as a site that stands for empowering and inspiring women, started to go crazy on dieting, we'd be crazy, because we'd all of a sudden wouldn't have a conversation that'd be truthful and honest to ourselves. So that's the most important thing. There's obviously a large conversation now out there in the world about the right terms that are ascribed to branded content and native advertising. Less than 10% of the content that actually runs on Refinery 29 or gets distributed is branded. It's always has a disclaimer that it is. And with regards to the last part of your question of working with brands directly, that's the whole nature of our business, right? It's the nature of our business to go back to the brand and say, hey, you might really, really want to push this thing, but insights tells us that this product is actually like a far better way to speak to our audience. So like everything in life that relates back to relationships and partnerships, it's about a two-way conversation. And the moment you just have something that's sort of like, just pushed onto you, it never really works.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Philip, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry about the George Michael. We're going to get you your George Michael.